What kind of utter bullshit is this, guys? I'm sure you have heard the recent reporting from my dear friend Allison Gill, and it is not good. And by not good, what I am talking about here is it looks like sort of a secret plot to allow Ghislaine Maxwell to maybe just slip away. Now, it's not clear whether Ghislaine will take advantage of what Allison Gill has revealed, but let's just lay it out here. Not only did child sex offender Ghislaine Maxwell, who procured girls, groomed them for Jeff Epstein and his customers to rape. She also participated in those sexual assaults. She was convicted and she was sentenced to 20 years in prison. Not only, as you know, was Ghislaine Maxwell moved to this minimum security prison camp that is supposed to never be for pedophiles, but she has also been given, according to Allison Gill's exclusive reporting, given a custody status called open. So let's start first, right now, before we go any farther, to expose this. And let me tell you, no one at the Bureau of Prisons has denied it. There has been no one on the record correcting this because it looks like Allison has the goods. And also, to be clear, Senator Sheldon Whitehouse has asked about this. He has specifically written a letter asking for the information that Allison Gill has in her hands. So let's start with this. This is Ghislaine Maxwell. This was a photo from the prison that she was in Tallahassee, Florida, until she was moved to a more cushy, less security, minimum security location. We know that already, right? But I need to be really more clear about the privileges she's getting and the place that she left. So here's the deal. Here's the headline from Allison Gill, and I am going to drop in the chat the link to Allison Gill's explosive breaking news story. So the headline is, I have Ghislaine Maxwell's security score, custody level, transfer code, and sex offender waiver. And then she said, I have reviewed an electronic file that includes some of the information Senator Whitehouse is demanding from the Bureau of Prisons. Okay, and we're going to go through that. But first, let me share with you where she used to be. This is called FCI Tallahassee. It's a low security, not minimum security, federal correction institution with a detention center. Okay, so she was in the detention center right there at FCI Tallahassee. What you should know is that it has received very poor ratings from an internal investigation, and that was in 2023 when Ghislaine was already there. Let's take a look at what it looked like. Now, this is the old prison she was in. Now, guys, no one is showing you these photos. It's really easy to do this, but I think you need to see where she left. Okay, so I'm going to blow this up so you can see it. This was a story published in November of 2023, and it said, Justice Department watchdog finds alarming conditions inside Florida federal prison. Okay, great. What were those alarming conditions? I'm going to show you some photos shared from this article by Ryan Lucas, and then I'm actually going into the report from the Bureau of Prisons. This is where Ghislaine Maxwell was before. And I bring this up because did Ghislaine Maxwell use her power and privilege to say, no one should be in these kinds of conditions? Did she try to help out other women? Absolutely not. She just tried to save and manipulate and get herself out of this location. Let's continue. So here is a photo. This is from the actual Bureau of Prisons Watchdog report from May of 2023. And I'm going to read this to you. It says, during our inspection, we observed issues with the inmate cafeteria at the female prison. We found numerous broken stools with sharp edges that could cause injury, or the broken remnants of which could be used as weapons, cracks in the floor, and so on. What else did they find? Okay, so I want you to see, this is what the female prison she was in looked like. Again, this is from the Office of Inspector General's report. They said faces are blurred, so you can't see them. This is what it's an actual lockdown prison on the left. And this is what a typical double level housing unit would look like. And that's what she was in, this kind of cell. Now, here is from a photo from the Department of Justice. And this was shared in the article I showed you. This is what they were served for lunch. Moldy bread was served during lunch. You can see that on the left. I got to tell you that macaroni salad and those gray peas don't look appetizing either. And on the right is a rotting cucumber. Once again, this is not good for anyone in incarceration. If the goal is rehabilitation, how is this going to do anything to rehabilitate people if they're sick, if they're not nourished, right? Custody, being kept in custody is supposed to be punishment enough. But did Ghislaine help these people? Nah, she didn't. What else do we see? This is a photo again. Let me I want to make this bigger so you can see it. This is from, again, the prison in Tallahassee, Florida, where she left. The sink, they noticed one of the sinks was detached from the wall. And then here you can see a windowsill is dirty in the cafeteria. And there is more. Now, guys, we're going to get to where she was moved. And again, I don't know how many times I can say that I believe, and just like the Bureau of Prisons Inspector General said, it's unacceptable what you just saw there in Tallahassee. Now, this was what it was like for her. I don't know how much it's been cleaned up in the last 2 years. But this is where she was moved to, a federal prison camp. This is sometimes called a club fed. And just to get a feeling for who she's in there with, on your left is Jen Shaw, who is from one of the Real Housewives show. I believe it was Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. On the right is, of course, Elizabeth Holmes from Theranos. Both of these women were here for are in prison with Ghislaine Maxwell for their white collar crimes. One of these things is not like the other, as I used to say on Sesame Street. And one of these things is that Ghislaine Maxwell was recruiting girls young enough to have been watching Sesame Street to get raped by Jeff Epstein, right? We're talking about girls 13, 14, 15, 16 years old. And she, of course, molested them too. Now, let us continue. This is where she got the privilege of moving. It was not acceptable. She needed a special waiver because she's a child sex offender. And they waived it to move her into a cushier location. Let's look at what that location is like. Prisoners, where she is now, in the prison camp in Texas, have access to GED classes, recreation programs, and an institutional commissary. You can see the grounds are quite nice, and you're allowed to roam the grounds at a location like that without the kinds of fencing that you have seen before. Now let's jump into, I'm going to remove this for a second. Let's jump into Allison Gill's exclusive story that we're talking about here. And I am sure the mainstream news will be picking this up as soon as they feel like they have better confirmation and have their own source for access to these records. Okay, let's add this to the stage. What you're looking at here is a screenshot from a computer screen. I think you can see that in the center. It's kind of blurry. And above and below that, this is Allison Gill's commentary. So this is what Allison Gill says. Here is Ghislaine's level and custody summary. And if you look at this, it says level and custody summary. You see a number that says base plus 7, custody plus 20, variance minus 8. So she was supposed to be at those levels. Then she was put into it's a scored low security minimum. The most disturbing thing is that last column that says custody out. So let me read what Allison said. What stands out here is the custody level out, which allows Ghislaine Maxwell to leave the minimum security campus for work assignments, much like Jeffrey Epstein was allowed to leave prison as part of the sweetheart deal he got from Alex Acosta that was penned by Alan Dershowitz. And then I'm quoting Allison still. She said she does not have any confirmation that Ghislaine has worked outside the facility. Sex offenders are not allowed to take assignments outside the facility, just as they are not supposed to be moved to a minimum security camp. That's concerning. So she has this, if this is accurate, Ghislaine Maxwell has the custody level of out. There's no evidence that she's actually gone out to work, but she's eligible for that. Now, let's continue. Let's talk about the transfer itself. Allison also has this information. According to a source, Maxwell's transfer code is 308, lesser security transfer. This transfer code is normally reserved for inmates whose point total has come down. But sex offenders, Allison wrote, are never transferred to minimum security facilities. Her security point score is 27. The total is comprised of 20-point custody score and a 7-point base score. And this is what she had showed us there. Okay. This is outrageous. Shall I remind you why it is outrageous? Do we need to share the victim's statements again to say that Ghislaine herself is a monster, right? That Ghislaine Maxwell herself was the ringleader, that there is no way these girls could have been abused. These victims would not have existed if it were not for Ghislaine. And I just think about what Maria Farmer had to say. I want to share that with you again.
Never met a more predatory, terrifying human being in my entire life, and neither had Virginia Giuffre, and neither has Annie, or Anushka, or many girls like Shantae Davies. There's hundreds of us that were preyed upon by Ghislaine Maxwell. She's a very dangerous person, and she threatened my life on many occasions. I've had to move and be in hiding because of this predatory child predator and just victim predator. So it's completely unacceptable for anyone to call her a victim. The woman is not a victim. She's a victimizer.
So that's your reminder. Of course, there's also court records, right? This is from her sentencing, from a press release about her sentencing, saying from at least 1994 up to and including in or about 2004, Ghislaine Maxwell assisted, facilitated, and participated in Jeffrey Epstein's abuse of minor girls by, among other things, helping Epstein to recruit, groom, and ultimately abuse victims known to Maxwell and Epstein to be under the age of 18. The victims were as young as 14 years old when they were groomed and abused by Maxwell and Epstein, both of whom knew that their victims were, in fact, minors. As a part and in furtherance of their scheme to abuse minor victims, Maxwell and Epstein enticed and caused minor victims to travel to Epstein's residences in different states, which Maxwell knew and intended would result in their grooming for and subjection to sexual abuse. Right? You know this. We know that Epstein died in prison. Many believe he was killed. Others think it was suicide. There's no way it should have happened. And it was quite convenient. Some believe Donald Trump either ordered or asked for his murder. of course, we also know that Donald Trump got his defense lawyer, the one who was not that successful for him, right? This is the defense lawyer, Todd Blanche, who was his lawyer when Donald Trump was convicted on 34 felony counts of fraud. He put his defense lawyer not just as deputy attorney general, but also the guy in charge of dealing now with Ghislaine Maxwell to keep her quiet. And just so you know, it was, they were very close. Photos again, Donald and Ghislaine, Donald and Ghislaine with Epstein and Melania in 2000. There they are hanging out together. Okay. So that's pretty flippin' shocking. In case you want to see where this reporting comes from, I know I did drop it into the chat, but I also want to share that screen to give Allison Gill full credit. So this is the piece that I shared with you. It came out on Monday. Okay. So again, please read it all. It is infuriating. Now, I got one more thing when it comes to a couple more things when it comes to Donald Trump and the cover up of his own involvement with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. CNN, just 20 hours ago, this is Andrew Kaczynski, they did a comprehensive review of Donald Trump's ties to Epstein, and they looked at records, photos, videos, interviews, and messages. And they're confirming that they did have a long relationship. They're saying, here's examples of Donald calling several times. This is like an example here. We have important message. These pink message forms, and maybe this one was a different color, light yellow. JE, a message for JE, Donald Trump calling and leaving his phone number. I don't mean to dox Donald Trump. I hope he has changed his phone number. Sorry about that. Okay. So let's now pivot for a moment. Donald Trump, of course, has always emulated Vladimir Putin and other so-called strongman dictators, Viktor Orban. For years, even in his first term, he's talked about admiring Xi, that he wants to be a ruler for life, Donald has said. Donald has always wanted to crack down in a brutal authoritarian way. We saw his language when he was first running for president in 2015 and 2016, where he told the police officers to be rough on people they were taking into custody, to let their heads hit against the cars. There is so much that we have seen about his violent authoritarianism, including at his rallies when there were people expressing their freedom of speech, talking about, shouting or what have you, encouraging the crowd to beat them up, to rough them up. We've seen this about him. And so you can see it's no surprise that Donald Trump also wants to win the next election. I think he will run again unless he's not alive. And he also wants to keep the House. He knows he's in danger of losing it. So he's trying to do everything he can to interfere in cities and in states that are a threat to his continued reign and the continued reign of the unlawful, sycophantic, racist, authoritarian, corrupt Republican Party that supports child rapists and pedophiles. So what we are seeing is Donald Trump, and I want to share this. I have this very good clip. Donald Trump is trying to attack, as you know, liberal cities. And last night he finally put in the National Guard to DC. It was a bit of a flop, but don't be fooled. He's trying to scare people. He's trying to dominate. And at the same time, he's trying to create an explosive incident every day to distract from Epstein. And Larry Krasner, the district attorney from Philadelphia, a progressive prosecutor, but also who stands up to Donald Trump's bullshit, had this to say to Caitlin Collins on CNN when he was asked about what is going on in DC and other liberal cities. Let's go.
So let's not get lost in his silly argument, his silly distraction from the fact that he doesn't want to give up information on his own involvement in a pedophile ring. Did we all forget about that? Let's not get away from that. And let's not get into his silly arguments. This country may have its lowest year.
Hey guys, I'm going to start this at the beginning because the sound happens to be lower on this clip. So I'm going to ask you to turn it up and then you can turn your sound down at the end. Okay, so turn it up a little bit and then we'll play it again.
Dictators want. So let's not get lost in his silly argument, his silly distraction from the fact that he doesn't want to give up information on his own involvement in a pedophile ring. Did we all forget about that? Let's not get away from that. And let's not get into his silly arguments. This country may have its lowest year of crime on record this year. At the same time, this man is claiming a public safety emergency. Donald Trump is the public safety emergency. It's him. And we all need to stand up to that or we are going to lose our country.
Whoa. Donald Trump is the public safety emergency. Damn right. Damn right he is. The biggest crime that ever transpired in the District of Columbia since the White House was burned down by the British in, was that 1812? The biggest flipping crime was committed by the insurrectionists who violently and with a purpose attempted to interfere with the peaceful transfer of power, encouraged by Mr. Stand Back and Stand By Donald Trump. The biggest crime was the attempt to pressure Mike Pence while violence surrounded the Capitol, to refuse to count the electoral vote so Donald Trump could engage in what's called a self-coup, an auto golpe. If Mike Pence hadn't shown his spine, Donald Trump would have stayed in office then, and God knows what next. And that is still his plan. Now, let me show you what happened last night in DC. Let's show you the sort of public face and then the reality, the actual disturbing, racist invasion in people's privacy that's going on. So let's first show you in daylight what a reporter said about the National Guard being implemented right by the Washington Monument. Here you go.
And see if we can't just show you a little bit more of this visual. Again, this is, you know, we have been told about the increased federal law enforcement presence in the city. And this is really the first major visual that we have seen. You have some onlookers coming and kind of asking these people questions and posing for pictures. And we're going to see in earnest what the National Guard presence is going to be in the nights and days ahead as they really increase the law enforcement presence in this city. Kate?
Yeah, as it ramps up and what it looks and how it evolves. Brian Todd.
Okay. People posing for photos, right? It's kind of a joke, we think. But let's look at what actually is happening with some roaming patrols when it got darker in neighborhoods where people are just sitting out on their steps smoking a cigarette, which is not good for your health, but is not a criminal offense. Moreover, the National Guard is not supposed to be, as you know, enforcing laws against civilians. And you have someone apparently doing that. Let's look.
How y'all doing today? Y'all staying in that trouble? You got your ID on you, Chip?
Well, no, I live right here.
Okay, cool.
It's a cigarette. Did y'all get a call or something about right here?
No, so we're doing checks, keeping everybody safe down here, right? Have you heard of the federal surge that Donald Trump's putting out?
No.
Right. You don't follow like
No.
Code 3, anything like that people are putting up? All right, so yeah, Trump's got all federal agencies kind of coming together for 7 days and going out, trying to stop the violent crime, all kind of stuff. So we're out here contacting people, talking to them, right? Quality of life offenses, smoking, drinking in public, right? Can't happen outside, right? Most people know that. Right? So we're contacting people, trying to advise them of the law so they learn, right? And then if there's other stuff going on where it turns into there's multiple agencies or somebody, there's a shooting and things like that. So there's extra hands to go, all right? So we're just out here trying to inform people and educate it's not like we're trying to just go grab people and ruin someone's life over a joint or something like that, all right?
I only asked because when you walked up, at the moment you walked up, you only had eggs.
Yeah, well, it smelled like the odor of marijuana, burnt marijuana in the air, right? And you're the only guy that had something in your hand, and I didn't flash right to you, so I didn't realize it was just a cigarette. So that's on me. I appreciate you understanding and not getting chippy with me. All right, so just know, right? Learn, teach, tell your boys, like, yo, everybody's out, from FBI to park police. Right? So do your thing. Let them know. Don't be smoking outside. Don't be drinking outside. Because Donald Trump is tired of it. People coming to visit.
I didn't know that.
You didn't know smoking in public?
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, arrestable
Because in
offense.
Maryland, it's recreational use, so I didn't know.
Yeah, so DC, it's recreational use as well, right? But you can legally possess up to 2 ounces. You can gift an ounce to your boy, right? So if you had 2 ounces and he said he needed a zip, you can give him a zip, but you can't smoke outside. You can
Donald Trump doesn't like quality of life offenses, drinking and smoking outside, whether tobacco, cigarettes, or marijuana. Guys, what the hell? What do you think his son is doing? And this is this sort of public-private space distinction. You can, in Donald Trump's world, you can embezzle, you can rape children, you can have people drinking outside, doing drugs anywhere, but not if they're poor, not if they're on their own front steps, just having a tobacco cigarette. Now, I got to tell you, I don't love the smell when I walk through New York of pot in the air. But at the same time, I don't want police taking and putting people into custody who are smoking a joint. I want them, I want people to be more respectful. But this is not the reason to put National Guard on the street. This is what he's talking about. Okay. Now, there's more on this. And again, I don't want to get away from the Jeff Epstein stuff. I'm making it very clear that there are 2 legal systems. We've talked about this, Ernst Frankl book, The Dual State, or 2 legal systems. And in this book that he wrote in the 1930s in Germany before he escaped, and then the book got separated from him, and somehow he got the transcript when he was back in America. The Dual State, this book, argues that when you live in an authoritarian regime, there are 2 different legal systems or states. There is the prerogative state and then the normative state. The prerogative state is what people get, the perks that you get if you are connected to the regime. For you, the law facilitates. The law allows exploitation. The law protects you. That is the prerogative state. You have prerogatives. For the rest of us, the law instead binds. We have to follow the rules or we will be punished or we will lose property or our liberty. This is happening faster in the United States than I expected. Now, of course, this was always the issue. Look at my writing on white-collar crime, Big Dirty Money, which came out in 2020. Seems quaint now. I certainly predicted it would get worse. And of course, I have laid a lot of this at the feet of Merrick Garland, who did not appoint a special counsel immediately to deal both with the insurrection and the Mueller report, where there was a whole blueprint laid out for an obstruction case against Donald Trump in Volume 2. But there's no going back. We are where we are. And what's important is that we keep calling people out. And so I want to show you what Jessica Tarlov on Fox News does here. She is calling out the Trump regime. She's calling bullshit on his representative, who is dressed like the way they do, a Barbie doll to distract you. Let's go.
He steps in, he takes action. Unfortunately, these Democrat-run cities are not sufficient at tackling the problem, so President Trump is going to step in where he needs to keep these cities from being overrun by a culture of lawlessness, or in the case of LA, from being burned to the ground. This president is a man of action, not simply task forces.
You
and
lived in
studies
LA, and you know that those protests were in a three-block radius, and those National Guard troops sat around on their butts until they were released.
Here's the deal. 30 days to see if there's a change, and the president does have the right to do it, and we'll see if it works. It's
a test case. He has the right to do it. Why? Because it's DC. Then why the hell did he not, one, stop the insurrectionists on January 6th? Because he didn't want to. They were for him. Remember how you tried to claim it was Antifa? No. It was the Proud Boys. It was people who were MAGA. And, of course, he pardoned 1,600 of them. They are his violent forces. I mean, this is so plain to see. And guys, it was plain to see on January 6th. It was plain to see in November of 2016. I didn't gaslight you. This was obvious. And there's more. There's more. Let's talk about Scott Jennings over on CNN being slammed by Abby Phillips, because what would make us safe? They don't want to make us safe. He wants violent confrontations. Let's listen to that.
I would also tell you, and since I am one, I will, that it's not the guns. It's the criminals running around the streets of D.C.
I mean, by that token, you would leave the illegal guns.
A gun becomes illegal when a violent person uses it on another person.
That's
what happens.
You need to look a little bit more into how this. We're talking about where a gun starts and where it ends. Guns on the black market. And the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act,
Republicans don't support
then why is Donald Trump getting rid of all the programming, all the funding in the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, which is the reason why the last 3 years,
the issue in DC
gun violence has gone down the most we've seen in the history of this country. We still have a lot of work to do. People still feel not safe, but there's still...
Okay. They don't... Scott Jennings is just going to say violent people. He doesn't care about the data. When the numbers don't support Donald Trump's agenda, which is white supremacist patriarchy, where all people who are not white men are subordinated, they want to. Pete Hegseth wants to take the vote away from women. Guys, this is happening very fast. We warned you that Trump would reverse Roe v. Wade. He talked about it, even though he claimed he wouldn't. He said that women needed to be punished criminally for abortion. I don't know why folks weren't paying attention, but here we are. Now, I'm going to get to more fighting back. More fighting back. Let's listen to S.E. Cupp on a different show, arguing with Scott Jennings. Here we go.
Hold on, Arthur. Go ahead, S.E. Just let me get a thought out.
Actually, same show. Sorry.
First things Russia did after it invaded Ukraine illegally was have the Ministry of...
Oh, I'm sorry. I want to deal with the Russia issue in a moment. Sorry. Okay. Let's talk more about numbers. So any number that Donald Trump doesn't agree with, he either says is fake news or he tries to fire the messenger. And we've already talked about how this totally unqualified young man is now head of it. Well, Donald Trump has nominated him to be head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And his plan here, of course, is worse than you think. It's not just faking the numbers. It's not producing numbers on a monthly basis. Because if you produce numbers on a monthly basis, that's more difficult to fake. They're going to do it on a quarterly basis. Let's listen.
For BLS Commissioner E.J. Antoni recently told Fox Business that the BLS should suspend issuing monthly job reports and only issue quarterly reports until the jobs data methodology is corrected. So does the president disagree with that assessment that his nominee has said there, or suspending these monthly job reports a real option?
I think he floated the idea of possibly suspending until they can get the data and the methodology in order. And this president wants to ensure that the BLS, again, is putting out accurate and honest data that the American people can trust. Since you brought up the new commissioner, he holds a master's and doctor's degree in economics from Northern Illinois University. He's the chief economist in the Heritage Foundation's Center for the Federal Budget. And
okay. He's a right-wing think tank lackey with only one citation to his work and no publications. He's the perfect guy for the job. He doesn't understand what he's doing, so he will do what he is told. So you might wonder, why isn't Wall Street upset that they're not going to get accurate numbers? I have a theory. A lot of data comes from a company called ADP. A lot of us get our paychecks from ADP. If I were ADP, I would be signing contracts. They probably already have them with analysts and businesses to provide those data points. And there are other ways to call up and get information. And so there will be some businesses who have an advantage who are creating that, but there's not going to be a centralized, agreed upon, accurate bit of information. So markets will be more volatile. It may be a lot like where the credit rating agencies, because they're hired by certain people who want the data to look a certain way, they'll make the numbers look a certain way. So could be a lot of market manipulation here. But, I guess that's good for Wall Street. I don't fully understand why they are putting up for it other than that. Now, a little more fighting back. This is two places. One, I got to share with you, Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom is helping lead the charge with others to say no effing way. Fight fire with fire. Down in Texas, if Donald Trump wants to give 5 more seats in Congress to Republicans, we're going to fight back. So let me share with you first a quick video of him from 2 days ago, and then the most amazing tweet. He is mocking Trump right and left, and I think it's the best thing for our own sense of purpose. We can laugh, get endorphins from laughing, and also Donald Trump, keep needling him.
We are talking about emergency measures to respond to what's happening in Texas, and we will nullify what happens in Texas. We will pick up 5 seats with the consent of the people, and that's the difference between the approach we're taking and the approach they're taking. We're doing it on a temporary basis, we're doing it in a fully transparent way, and we're doing it by asking the people of the state of California for their consent and support. Mark that stark contrast to what's happening in Texas and other states.
I love that. I think that someone in the chat said very accusingly, Sylvain, why am I not saying that it's a legal requirement that the Bureau of Labor Statistics put out a monthly jobs report? First of all, the reason why I have not said that, is if we look at the statute, even though the statute says, and I'm reading this, the Bureau of Labor Statistics shall also collect, collate, report, and publish at least once a month full and complete statistics of the volume. And I'm trying to look at this. At any rate, they're supposed to put this out. Who cares what the law says? What are they going to do? Who has standing to sue sue them for not putting out a jobs report? Who is going to actually sue the Labor Department? Plus, I have not looked at this statute and whether there is an exception to that or whether the Bureau of Labor Statistics has authority under the statute to suspend it. I don't know the legal issues here, but if you've noticed, they will suspend it for as long as they want to. And if there is a lawsuit, how long do you think the lawsuit will take for there to be an injunction to require this? Who has standing again to do this? So, whatever the law is, if they want to suspend the data, they will do it. And, they violate the law first and see what happens later. Furthermore, given the Supreme Court's enforcement of this idea of an imperial executive branch, who's to say the Supreme Court won't decide that order is not constitutional? Furthermore, I could go on and on. Okay. So I have not researched deeply, if at all, any legal requirements regarding that reporting, but I'm not going to hold my breath that any threat of litigation will change that. Okay. And I have now the Newsom mockery. This was from yesterday in the morning. I flippin' love it. Governor Newsom has a very good Twitter game. He doesn't seem to be as much over on Blue Sky, so I'm showing you this. This is from his press office, and he does it in all caps in Donald Trump style. So let's look at this. Donald Trump, the lowest polling president in recent history. This is your second to last warning. The next one is the last one. Stand down now, or California will counterstrike legally to destroy your illegal crooked maps in red states. Press conference coming, hosted by America's favorite governor, Gavin Newsom. Final warning next. You won't like it. Thank you for your attention to this matter. This is the way to do it. Now, you may say, will it even work? I don't know. But if we can't laugh, what are we even doing here? And I do think this mockery is helpful. Now, I've got one more thing before Crazy Town. And this is one of my other favorites. The young man running for mayor of New York, Zohran Mamdani, came out with this fabulous ad directed at Andrew Cuomo saying, release the list, Andrew. Release the Cuomo list. I need you to listen carefully to every word of this because there's a nice little bit at the end. Let's play it.
And you probably know why.
The governor's office kept the nursing home.
Let me start at the beginning. Here we go. Sorry.
4 years ago, Andrew Cuomo resigned in disgrace, and you probably know why.
The governor's office kept the nursing home death data secret.
Cuomo aggressively groped an aide.
Inappropriately touched a female state trooper.
Use of state resources for a COVID-19 memoir.
Less well known is what he spent the last 4 years doing, besides getting trounced in the Democratic primary. In 2022, Cuomo started Innovation Strategies LLC to represent individuals and corporations in a variety of matters. Definitely not vague. Last year, it raked in more than $500,000. Who paid for Cuomo's services? He refuses to say. But what journalists have been able to piece together is troubling. In April, Bloomberg revealed that Cuomo advised a cryptocurrency exchange based in the Seychelles as it faced federal investigations. Then in May, Politico reported that Cuomo failed to disclose $2.6 million in stock options to the New York City Conflicts of Interest Board. His excuse? The stocks were technically owned by Innovation Strategies LLC,
oh my
of
God,
which he's
his
the
own
sole
company.
proprietor. Finally, in June, the New York Times uncovered that Cuomo had worked with his longtime friend Andrew Farkas on a luxury marina project in Puerto Rico. Farkas' previous partner on luxury marinas in the Caribbean, Jeffrey Epstein.
We had a finance chair like none other, Andrew Farkas.
That's the thing about Andrew Cuomo. Once you think you found out about all of his scandals, you find out about another, and then probably another. But if my friend, the disgraced former governor of the state of New York, feels that's unfair, Habibi, release your client list. 4 years ago, Andrew...
That last line, Habibi, release your client list. I love that. I believe Habibi is an affectionate Arabic term for, you say uncle, Habibi, like friend, uncle, release your client list. How about that? Andrew Cuomo having a finance chair that also worked with Jeffrey Epstein. How about this? Now I see people in the chat. Yes, we've talked about Donald Trump is planning to support Andrew Cuomo. Any Democrat that I know of, and there are some who I have respected in the past, who is supporting Andrew Cuomo. I'm not going to say they're dead to me, but what I'm going to say is they're big disappointments. Big disappointments. And they are no friends of the Democratic Party. They're destroying it. What we are seeing is huge successes from Democrats all over the country, including recently Molly Coleman, who just won a seat recently on a, I'm forgetting which state it was, local city council. There is so much going on with people willing to say that populism and progress. And the working class and the middle class and even the upper middle class are the Democratic Party, right? We don't need the billionaire, pedophile, rape apologist, sexist machine Democrat side of things. Now, I do have a crazy town, but I need to share two things with you before that, because this is real serious. There are people in the Democratic Party who want to throw trans people under the bus. And it's ridiculous. People should have whatever gender expression they want. And also, what they're not focused on is what it looks like when businesses police bathrooms. So women, it's usually women's bathrooms, where they're saying, I don't believe you're really female. You can't come in here. So I want to share with you what happened here. This was on NBC News. I'm just going to share with you my screen here. Okay, so this is a Minnesota teen. And this happened yesterday. A Minnesota teenager filed I'm reading from NBC News, an article by Joe Urkaba. A Minnesota teen filed a charge of discrimination against a Buffalo Wild Wings restaurant Tuesday, alleging a server followed her into the women's restroom and demanded she prove she was a girl. Girika Mudra, 18, went to dinner in April with a friend in Owatonna, about an hour south of Minneapolis. When she went to the restroom, a server followed her inside and banged on the stall door while saying, "This is a women's restroom. The man needs to get out of here," according to Gender Justice, a Minnesota gender equality organization that filed the charge on Mudra's behalf. Here is Mudra. Okay. Mudra, a biracial lesbian who is not transgender, said that she has been in similar situations before when people have suggested she's in the wrong restroom. But then when she tells them she's a woman, they leave her alone. However, when she came out of the stall at Buffalo Wild Wings and told the server, "I am a lady," she said, the server responded, "You have to get out now." Mudra said she felt she had to prove to the server that she was a woman, so she unzipped her hoodie to show her she has breasts. The server didn't say anything in response, but left the restroom, Mudra said. This is disgusting. What the hell is going on, you guys? So just keep that in mind if you decide to throw transgender folks and non-binary folks under the bus. Okay, guys. One last thing, because this goes to one of the other important topics we don't want to forget about, which is the way ICE is detaining all sorts of people without due process, including Americans, and subjecting them to harm and conditions that could cause injury and death. So I want to share this with you. One last thing again before Crazy Town. Sorry. Share screen. I got you. And here we go. This is about a U.S. citizen who is detained by ICE in Los Angeles, says she wasn't given water for 24 hours. I am going to play this for you now.
Andrea Velez has yet to physically return to work near 9th and Main Street in downtown Los Angeles, where the 32-year-old works as a production coordinator for a shoe company.
I take it day by day.
That day, June 24th, Velez says her mom and sister had just dropped her off at work.
It was like a scene, like they were just ready to attack and chase.
Velez describes seeing unmarked cars and masked men in civilian clothing going after people.
And all I felt was that he grabbed and just slammed me to the floor.
Velez says she tried to tell the plainclothes agent who arrested her that she's a U.S. citizen.
He said that I was interfering with what he was doing, so he was going to arrest me. And that's when I asked him to show me his badge number, his ID, identification. I asked him for if he had a warrant, and he said I didn't need to know any of that.
Velez's sister, sobbing through this video, called 911.
We were already driving away, and she, in her mirror, she's like,
they're taking your sister.
In this criminal complaint, federal prosecutors say Velez stepped into an agent's path and extended one of her arms in an apparent effort to prevent him from apprehending a man he was chasing after. Velez says while officers were processing her into a detention center in downtown, she again tried to tell them she was a U.S. citizen and did nothing wrong.
So they didn't believe me. And then I gave them my real ID. And at one point I gave them my driver's license and even my Kaiser health insurance card.
Velez says they still didn't believe her. She spent 2 days in the detention center where she says she had nothing to drink for 24 hours.
And you have to buy utensils to eat. This lady, she was going to get out that day and she was very kind enough to give me her cup and her sport.
Velez was released from custody 2 days after her arrest, and a month ago, the Department of Justice dismissed her case without prejudice, which means her case is closed temporarily.
I don't have any criminal history. I've always tried to do the right thing. I've never hurt anybody in my.
So after that, they did reach out to the Department of Justice for a story and didn't get a response. This is happening right now in America. Don't look away. We will get through this, but not through deceiving ourselves like people have been doing for years. Now, we need a little crazy town after all that, so let's do it. And before I do that, thanks again to the amazing Mod Squad, right? AJ, Deb, and Jason. Love you guys. You are incredible. And remember, the music I played at the end was designed by Jason. Okay, let us go to, my media assets. Sorry, Crazy Town. You know how the Orange Menace is meeting with the murderous Vladimir Putin on Friday? I need to read you because are you fucking kidding me? This is what he said on Twitter. So this was this morning. And I don't know what to tell you guys, but I got to read it. And I'm going to read you at the top. Aaron Rupert, who shared this, so I saw it on Blue Sky, said Leningrad was renamed St. Petersburg in 1991, just so you know, because after the fall of the Soviet Union, Leningrad, named after Lenin, murderous dictator, was changed to St. Petersburg because that had been the name prior. If you've read any Tolstoy, you'll remember Moscow, St. Petersburg. Okay, let's read this. Very unfair media is at work on my meeting with Putin, constantly quoting fired losers and really dumb people like John Bolton, who said that even though the meeting is on American soil, Putin has already won. What's that about? We are winning on everything. The fake news is working overtime. No tax on overtime. If I got Moscow and Leningrad free as part of the deal with Russia, the fake news would say that I made a bad deal. But now they've been caught. Look at all of the real news that's coming out about their corruption. They are sick and dishonest people who probably hate our country, but it doesn't matter because we are winning on everything. Leningrad. Good luck to you. Good luck to you. Lisa Murkowski in Alaska on Friday. I hope you still have a state. I really do, honey. And with that, I will see you tomorrow morning. Thanks for your support, guys.
Hello, prison mates. It's the Gen Taub Show. Well, welcome everyone. Let's learn about what is happening in politics yesterday and today. There is hope, and we are together in this democracy we work for. And again, welcome to the Jen Taub Show.